Hello everybody, I'm Liquid Squid, and in this series I will be playing free-to-play games, an hour each, and deciding if I think they are worth your time. Obviously there are so many games these days and you probably don't have time to check them all out, so my goal is to save you time and help you decide what your next playthrough will be. I hope you all enjoy, now let's dig right in.
Oh my god.
Omen, how did that work?
Play of the game.
Alright, so in this series we will actually be reviewing free-to-play games, but we will be using a template that I have made for all games that I review, and it will be including 6 main categories with a few subcategories each. So we'll just go over those real quick, and then we've made a Valorant like demo thing, so this isn't exactly accurate, but this is like throwing numbers in almost accurate. Graphics will consist of style, fidelity, performance, options, and expectations. Every category should have expectations because we were advertised the game, we ended up getting a game, right? Is it what we were going to expect or not? Style and fidelity are going to be different things. So style is like the artwork in general. You could have a game that's really pixelated but looks really good, and it could have one style, and that's great. Stuff like Power World, where you put like Pokemon and guns, that style might not be great because it's not consistent. Fidelity, does it show up really well? Is it really choppy looking? And then performance, does it run at a solid 60 or 120 FPS, or is it struggling to get 15 FPS on most systems, you know? Options is a simple one. This is like, how many options do you have to make a change within the game to make your settings better for your system? And that is graphics. Going on to comfort, we have the learning curve. This is kind of a simple one. How hard is it to learn the game? Is there tutorial tips, in-game information? Minecraft would be a low score, but stuff like Valorant having a training area, that might be a higher score. Whereas difficulty is, you know, how hard is the game in general. Elden Ring, the difficulty will be pretty hard, but it also consists of, is hard in like your selector, is hard, and is easy, you know? Do the sliders really affect the game much, or is it not really something that matters in the game? Understandability is like, how understandable is it when you're looking at the game to figure out what you're doing? Black Desert will have a low score on this probably because there is a lot of clutter. In fact, I'm sure a lot of MMOs will have this. It's one of those things where like learning curve on the menus will also affect your understandability, because if you look at simulators, for example, that's a high learning curve, so that'll have a low score, but they might be understandable controls. So those aren't necessarily the same, but they will tie into each other a bit, and they do revolve around the difficulty. And then your expectations. Was it a simulator, so you're expecting to have to learn it, or is it something like Minecraft where it looks simple, but then when you go to play it, you know, maybe placing a block is number 1 and breaking a block is the letter Y, you know? Or do the controls not make sense? Controls will also be part of the problems category, but we'll get to that in a minute. We're gonna look at gameplay here. So you have your story, and that's, you know, just the main story. How much depth, how many paths, how much repetition is there? Those are the things we will consider. Immersion, which is, you know, how it's immersion, you know, how well does it pull you into the game? Amount of content, which is a higher value, and amount of content would be how much main story, how many side missions, discoverables, how many player skills or utilities are there, and just the world in general. It's just content, right? And this is just primary content. This isn't including DLC. So anytime we rate a game, it won't be based on DLC. We will have something that takes into account DLC down here, but up here we're looking at just the base game. Variation is it unique or creative? How many ways can you play the game? Are there certain player skills that you can have that others won't? And multiple endings or starting options. So Cyberpunk has multiple endings. In Valorant, there's certain players that are good with raise blast packs, whereas some people are better with jet draft, updraft, and dash. Or you could even look at like Skyrim. Some people do a melee build and others will do an archer's build, right? I haven't played Skyrim that much, so I can't really speak much on that, but I do know that they have player skills and utilities, and there's many ways to play the game, so those will tie in as well, content and variation. But if it's like Valorant versus CSGO, how much is really different? I mean, the utilities mostly the same as each other, just done in a different way, so it's a little bit different, but for the most part it's just another shooter with some abilities, right? And then of course expectations. Our next category would be value. Value is the price versus the actual value you're given before DLC. So how much are you paying and how much are you getting out of the game, right? Microtransactions and DLC are going to be a separate value, and that's going to be what are the prices in game and what are the skins or paid content that you're getting. What is the value in that? Like if you look at Valorant, you get a skin. If it's $100, it's like, wow, that's kind of a bad value. Whereas $100 will get you a whole zombies map and multiplayer maps on Black Ops 3 or even some of the newer Call of Duty games, right? And I think we can all agree we'd rather have a full zombies map over the Valorant skin, right? Maybe not, but that is the microtransaction. English is my first language. Microtransactions and DLC value. When we get to their effect, that is, do they add or take away from the game, which would be like pay to win or gameplay skips, or is it just a skin? So in Valorant, it would be a 9 out of 10 just because they do affect the game with audio, but overall they don't affect actual gameplay. And if we're looking at like Black Ops Zombies, we would be looking at, is there anything that gives you an edge over other people? No? Okay, well, it just adds to the game, right? It doesn't make the game any worse to have it. So that would probably be a 10 out of 10. Even if the zombie maps aren't great, that would be a lower value. But as far as game effect, it only makes the game better because you have more you can do. Expectation, what did we expect the game's value to be? If we expect it to be $200 and it is $200, and we expected to have a game worth that and we got a game worth like $60, that's a terrible value. And so that's a terrible expectation. Whereas if we were told, yeah, you're gonna have to spend $1,000 on this game, but it's not ready for anyone to actually play yet, it's just kind of a demo, well, it's a terrible value, but it's exactly what we expected. So expectation really does matter here. Our next category is problems. Problems will be performance and bugs, controls, connection, storage, and did we expect these problems? So performance and bugs, how bad are they? How much are they really going to affect the game? Are they just annoying? Are they hardware specific? And do they make the game unplayable? Controls is going to mostly affect VR games and simulators, but to put it simply, if it's a first-person shooter on a flat screen, is your shooting button R instead of the mouse click that we all expect it to be on? If so, the controls will be a lower score because it doesn't make sense. Whereas like in VR, it'll make more sense for VR players because sometimes we'll have controls weirdly placed on things, like the trigger being grab instead of the grip button and stuff like that. And it'll also include compatibility. So like if there's a game built for a very specific control set, but it's not the one that most people have or many people even have, then this can also be low. Connection is mostly online games. Are you disconnecting often? Are you lagging? Do you need to be online for a single player game? And are you waiting for 3 hours for a queue time? Or in Overwatch 2's example, did I have to wait for about 45 minutes to get into a game? A game that size, I don't think 45 minutes makes sense. Before it was Overwatch 2, it only took me maybe a few minutes. There are certain examples I can give here, but connection is connection. So most online games will have this. Most single player games, it'll just be a perfect score because you don't have to worry about it. I say most because some of them are starting to require an online connection, which is terrible. Going to storage, does it take 300 gigabytes to get a game that shouldn't take that much? Or is it taking 60 gigabytes for a game that could probably take up way more, but they've done a really good job of compacting it? Our numbers are how good they are, so of course if it takes 60 gigabytes and this game could easily take 300 gigabytes and you'd be happy with how much is in it, then that's good. If it takes 300 gigabytes and you're thinking, man, this should only be like maybe 40 gigabytes at best, then this is bad. So we'll get around to that. That kind of ties into how much content we have in the game. Expectation will also play a role in this score here. That is problems. Storage can be a problem. That is why it's in that category. Our last category is how enjoyable is the game. And this one is going to be kind of a person-to-person answer, but we tried to make it an overall grade that would work for most people. You can say fun, and that can mean many things, but what we're thinking when we say fun is it something that you look forward to playing, and does it make you happy? So in this example here, I've put 11 for Valorant, even though I come back to it often, because often I think, man, I'm just gonna drop rank, guess here we go again, you know, it's not that exciting, but I keep coming back to it, right? So it's not necessarily fun, you just keep playing it. That being said, it can be fun at sometimes. It's a 50-50, and this might even be a 12 on a good week, but it's also just per person and how it goes, right? Lately, this probably would have been a 13, but this is an 11 when I made this quick example. This isn't an actual review of it, this is just an example. But the reason I dropped it to 11 is because I've had bot lobbies for the last few weeks, and I don't know that I've had more than maybe one normal game. And so it's either bot lobbies, AFKs, or people that are obviously smurfing and or cheating, but I usually hawk it up to smurfing because sometimes it's just stuff that makes sense, and other times it's like, how did he hit that, you know? And part of it's also that it's a skill issue, but it shouldn't be putting you in an iron lobby one game and then a plat lobby the next, right? And that seems to be happening a lot with me, and I keep getting AFKs, smurfs, people that throw the game intentionally, and they're somehow hitting these higher ranks that we're in and dragging us down. So as far as does it make you happy, a lot of the time it can't, but sometimes it can. So it's like a 50-50, and right now it's really close to a 50-50. But this example is a great example because how addicting is it? Are you returning often? Are you coming back to YouTube channels that make content on it just to see that content? Or are you looking into the lore behind the game or a character specifically? And I've put the Valorant example at a 4 out of 5 because although it can be not fun about half of the time, it is an interesting story and some of the characters are interesting. And it's something that I would definitely look into all the time and come back to. Addicting might not be the best word, but that's the filler word I've got for that category. Let me know if you guys have a better word for this. But it isn't the same as replayability. So one's a want versus possibility. Addicting is more the category of if you want to come back. Replayability is how much you can come back without repetition. If you look forward to playing it again, using a new character or build, perpetual gameplay, or is it too competitive? These are the things that we're mostly taking into account. I added perpetual gameplay for FPS games because sometimes stuff like new character or build, and I'm thinking like if Skyrim you do a new character each time, or Cyberpunk you might think, okay, I can play this game again and again, it'll be different. Whereas an FPS game, you can only do it so many times, but it's basically the same game. Look at Call of Duty, it doesn't really have any changes going for it, but you play it over and over and over, and that's what I would consider perpetual gameplay. Another example I would say is Minecraft. You can start over in a new world, but a lot of people will play on the same world and just continue on and on because it's infinite. And so that is what I consider perpetual gameplay. I'm lumping that up with replayability because is there more you can do is basically what this category is about. And then if you look forward to playing it again because, I don't know, maybe there's a new map out on Valorant, or maybe there's a new character, or I don't know, maybe Minecraft has a new update. That's kind of the situation there. And I've added it to competitive as if you come back to a game, like I'm thinking Apex Legends, you come back to it thinking I can play this again, and it's just so competitive that it's unplayable. It's not necessarily the gameplay is unplayable, it's the people are unplayable. In that case, if a game's too competitive, the game can sometimes be that devs are aiming the game for their esports stuff and their higher level stuff, and they don't care about the lower level players and their enjoyment in the game. And so I think CSGO is a decent example, but Valorant is a great example because Valorant is a very highly competitive game, and if you are just a common player, you're probably suffering half the time because everyone else is probably, it's a 50-50, but if you're just a common casual player, everyone else is probably dogging on you and you're just not enjoying the game, right? And there's not much you can really do that's different besides come into the play and die. So if a game gets too competitive, I would say maybe Apex Legends has gotten there, then that would affect the score as well. And then I have a disclaimer for this last category here, community. The community isn't the game's responsibility, but if they claim a certain community guideline, right? So in Valorant's example, they claim a safe community due to like monitoring and reporting systems. That's how we'll grade that. Whereas if their game is supposed to be toxic fun, if that makes sense, Modern Warfare 2, a lot of people know that game, even CSGO is like that, that's kind of what you should get, right? And expectations is more of what they advertise versus what you get. But community, like if you look at Valorant, the Valorant community is pretty good, but if I'm going to be honest, the in-game community is just kind of silent and therefore kind of boring. Sometimes you get people that talk, but usually they're just trolls or the lobby's quiet. Whereas like Black Desert Online, I don't know anyone there, and people invite me to do stuff or teach me stuff, or sometimes I'll get people that troll me, but it's all in good fun, right? Whereas maybe my expectation wasn't that. I don't really know the expectation on that. This isn't the grade for that. I'd have to look at what their advertisement for the game was and see if they ever really advertised anything for the community. And part of this is also, it's not just is the community like the most outstanding people in the world. On the flip side, if they claim an open chat free of consequences, so a freedom of speech chat is what we'll call it, but then they don't uphold that and they start banning and muting players, then that's not what we expected, and we should recognize that. So if you're expecting a game where you can trash talk with people because that's the kind of fun that you have, and then they start banning people for it after they said that they would allow it, this will be a low score. Because if you're giving us one thing but you told us you were going to give us something else, it's not accurate. Every game has its place, including the toxic ones, because sometimes that can be fun. Yeah, this is kind of where we're going. Let me know what you guys think on this. I think the expectations on what we get out of the game and the overall, are you actually enjoying playing it, or are you just playing it for a score and a skin, are the most important in this category. That is why this one's kind of backwards, is I think that overall, if you're not really enjoying it, why are you playing it, right? That is the biggest thing. And a lot of the times it's, oh, there's a new skin or there's a new character and I want to see if it's worth it, but I have to grind to get it. And it seems like a lot of that is an addiction at some level, right? Even some games like gacha games are known for being addicting, but they could also just be fun, right? So maybe that's okay, depending on how the games do it. But then we'll obviously add these scores. They're all out of 50, and this corner here is really what you guys are gonna see in the videos. So you guys will get a category for graphics if you care more about graphics and how realistic it looks, cyberpunk, or even we might review mods at some point, then you would probably care more about this category. So we will have these categories shown. Maybe you don't care about graphics, maybe you only care about the game running well and having a lot of content and being fun, and those are the only three things you care about. Then that's what we will have, right? That's what you will care to look at. But let's say like this, for example, the graphics are pretty clean in Valorant, so honestly this is an 84 out of 100 if we're going to just go off of graphics. And if that's all you care about, then boom, there you go. But in this case, this is with all of the categories combined, we get this score, and this is how we're doing it. So 50 for each category adds up to 300. In this case we have 223 for a score of 74.34%. The score that we would post is the 74%, right? So let me know what you guys think about this system. I have this on a spreadsheet because if, for example, I want to say Valorant has become more fun, they added more stuff, I'm gonna say it's a 13 or even a 14. You can see when I press enter, this 35 will change down here and these numbers will change. So now we are at 226, which is a 75%. So we are doing better. Whereas now if I instead say this is a 9, now we're at a 73.6%, and I just round that up to 74% probably, unless you guys want to see the decimal, but I think it's easier. 74 out of 100, call it good. Anytime it's a 0.5, if it's a solid 0.5, I'll round it up, but a 0.49 will go down. So let me know what you guys think. I'm gonna leave this one at 11, not 911. And yeah, that is how we will grade these. Again, this is an example. This is not the actual review of Valorant, but it is pretty close. I just kind of threw numbers in really quick without actually thinking too much about it, and this is what I came up with. The other game we have will actually be quite a bit better of a score, and this number still has to change a little bit, but I wanted to go over how things looked for you guys. And another thing is, I wanted to go over how the game feels after X amount of time, right? So if I play for 2 hours and I decide this game is so bad I never want to touch it again, then that is what it would be. Like if it's, you basically move a square around inside a box and that is the entire game and there's nothing else to it, it doesn't even take an hour to figure that out. But in the case of games as big as Starfield, maybe you guys say, okay, well 10 hours isn't enough, I need to know what it's like after 20 hours. Well, then at the end of 20 hours we could find out if it's still good. We could go over, is it good in the first 5 hours? Does it take 6 hours? Does it take 7 hours? You know, whatever we feel like it takes for a game to get good, if it ever gets good, or if the whole game is bad. Because a lot of people will say, oh, you just need to play 100 hours of a game, and that's kind of unfair, right? But I think it's fair to say that we will at least play 5 hours of each game if we think that we can. Like if it's playable up to 5 hours, we will play it 5 hours. If there's no content or dead lobbies, we might not play it 5 hours. But especially with bigger games, we should be able to play 5 hours at least. And this is just a unfinished review here. That is going to be our next game. So yeah, we're looking pretty good here. We've got some systems that other games aren't giving, so it's pretty nice, and that will be our next game. But for now, this is what we are looking at, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this series, because it's honestly, I'm looking forward to doing this series. So if you guys enjoy the series, let me know. If you guys are hoping to see some cool games out of this series, that would be cool. This will be the free-to-play series, but we will eventually be doing early access as a series, and maybe just general reviews overall. And this is also made so that I can be one of many people that review it. But for now, to test the waters, we'll do a few videos of just me reviewing it and see what you guys think. So let me know what you think in the comments, and that'll pretty much be it for this video. And really quick, I did want to cover the games that we have available right now to review versus the games that we are actually putting time into. Obviously, some games are not available anymore, like Servarium here, but you can see I've got a lot of time in it. This game was really good for what it was. Honestly, this would have been a suggestion, but this game is no longer playable, so maybe one day we'll review that. But we have other games. I didn't know this was free to play, so we'll review that probably. We could do bigger games like Apex. Some of these games don't show time on here because I didn't play them on the Steam platform. Let's see here. Unplayed. Spellbreak. I was playing the closed beta, so we could play the actual release game and see what it's like. The closed beta was pretty cool. And what's another one? Destiny 2. I think I played this on, I think it's Bungie, right? But it's no longer on there, or I think that store closed, so I got on Steam. I don't entirely remember that. I don't know what this is. Oh, that's Blender. Okay. But yeah, we'll go over the free-to-play games. Some of these games I've opened in a menu and left there. Some of them, like this one, aren't even really games. So just let me know if you guys have a game you want me to review, a free-to-play game, and we might try that one out. This is another unplayable game at the moment, or for now on. And some of these games, this one will be a few minutes of this is a VR experience, not a game, and that shouldn't be thought of as one, but it's also not worth downloading at this point. Some of these are very outdated, so yeah, we'll have a few of those. Like this one's gonna be maybe another 10 minutes of me in it just to show what it is, because there's absolutely nothing in there. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys have a game, and I'll see you next time. Peace out. Bye bye.